What's up everybody, my name is Derek, and in today's video we're going to be talking about this thing right here. Yeah, the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7. And for those of you who are living under a rock, or maybe you just aren't into the whole tech space things, basically it's the era of folding phones. Most people typically have a slab style smartphone like this one. This is the Google Pixel 7 that my mom gifted to me. And so basically a slab smartphone or a candy bar smartphone is going to be glass technology in the middle and then typically glass on the back. And that's been pretty much the going standard for most of the smartphones since, I don't know, 2007 when the original iPhone came out. However, a few years ago, Samsung kind of changed the game up by introducing folding phones. First, they had a folding style tablet phone like the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7, and then they had a new idea, which is then going to be the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7. So we're going to talk about why this clam style phone may or may not be the phone for you. So let's go ahead and get the elephant out of the room. Every year when there's a new folding phone, everyone says on their wish list is, I don't want a crease, 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 crease. And you know what? It has a crease. You see that right there? Yeah, there's a crease. And when you first open up the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7, there actually isn't a crease. But as you continue to fold and open the phone and fold and open the phone, the crease becomes more pertinent. And so that is something that I guess is not going away anytime soon. And honestly, I think Samsung really did a magnificent job with the crease on this Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7. And I also believe that they did a really good job with the crease on the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7, but that's for another video. When we are talking about the crease for the Z Flip 7, I would have to say that even though it's visible, it's not really something that you can feel. Most of the time when you're typing or texting or doom scrolling or playing Pokemon Go or whatever it is that you do on your phone, most of the time you're actually going to be staying mostly on the bottom half of the screen. And that's not, again, going to be objective. That's going to be objective for me because I hold my phone like this and my thumb would stay around here. So obviously I'm a man and I have larger hands, so the one-handed ability to use this phone is out of this world. And so the crease sits on a 6.9-inch display. It's not quite the same aspect ratio as, let's say, the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. It is a little bit more narrow than the S25 Ultra, however, it is ever so slightly taller than the S25 Ultra. And with this particular aspect ratio, with the Z Flip 7, it's narrow enough to be one-handed, but it's also wide enough to be able to comfortably type with two hands. So this 6.9-inch display is only one of two displays, because whenever you close your phone, you then have a 4-inch display. And let me tell you, whenever you're using the outer screen, this thing is pretty neat. So the outer screen of the Z Flip 7 is the showcase of Samsung actually trying to impress their client base again. There was a few years, I think from the Flip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, where the outer display was kind of just like ever so slightly growing, but Samsung was kind of just teasing us and not giving us a full outer screen display. That's a thing of the past now, because now this 4-inch display on the outside is just beautiful. It's great for taking pictures, it's great for doing selfies, it's great for, again, taking selfies. And did I mention that it's good for selfies? But this outer display is actually not just for taking pictures and selfies. There are actual things that you could do with it, like you could text on the outer display. And with this outer display, you're actually able to do quick tasks such as texting and also launching Google Maps. Obviously, you can do the camera. And through the GoodToknow customization app suite, you're able to go ahead and add widgets and do certain things. And we'll talk about some of these later on in the video, so make sure you stay till the very end. And continue on to the design of the Z Flip 7. It is IP48 rated, so that means it is dust resistant, and even though it flips open like this, it is going to be able to be submerged underwater for 1 meter for up to 30 minutes in fresh water only. So if you're not familiar with IP ratings, basically there's two letters, the I, which stands for more solid type of debris, and then the P, which is going to be for more liquid type of debris. So the higher the number, so like IP 48, 68, whatever, equates to a better kind of well-rounded, more durable type of phone. So in terms of the IP48 rating, there's this thing right here, that's going to be the hinge. basically that hinge is going to be how your phone opens and closes. And that's going to be where the IP rating really comes into play, because while it is IP48 rating and it's highly resistant to dust, there is a high potential of sand and fine micro debris that gets within the hinge. And if you get that kind of sand or debris inside of your hinge on your folding phone, not just the Z Flip 7, but the Z Fold 7 as well, next time you open up your Fold like this, you may hear more creaks in your phone than a millennial waking up and getting out of their bed. Ask me how I know. So before we talk about the apps and the things that you can do, we need to understand the thing that's powering this Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7. The Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7 is unfortunately powered by an Exynos processor. So again, if you're not technical, but you kind of want to start understanding what the heck a Exynos is versus a Qualcomm. So basically, an Exynos processor is typically deemed and identified as a weaker processor within phones. You'll see a lot of these manufacturers and companies put what they call a Qualcomm chip inside of their more flagship phones so that way they get the best performance. And so that's where I'm a little confused with the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7. This is a premium phone. I mean, you pay a pretty penny just to do this. So why did Samsung not put the most premium processor in their clam style folding phone? That's because, well, it's a business. While the Exynos processor across the board gets kind of a lot of shade, I feel like the Exynos processor in the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7 is not bad. Amongst all my Android phones that I've used in my life, I've only had phones that were ultra level, so like the S25 Ultra, the Z Fold 7, the Z Fold 6, the S23 Ultra, and the list kind of goes on and on and on. But the point is the fact that those more flagship phones had the flagship processor. This folding flagship phone doesn't have the flagship processor. If you know why Samsung did this, aside from it just being a business tactic, let me know in the comments below. The Exynos processor, for me, it doesn't seem too bad. I'm not quite sure if I just didn't utilize the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7 enough, or maybe I haven't had it long enough, but I've been using this phone for pretty much 2 months straight, and I haven't really seen any kind of like performance issues when I compare it to a Qualcomm chip. But again, Samsung is charging us a pretty penny for their new clam style flip phone. I really do believe that we should have a Qualcomm chip inside of it. But I'm just a baby YouTuber, so what do I know? So in terms of performance, the Exynos processor I think does a pretty good job. And so the AI aspects of this, like the Galaxy AI, the Exynos chip is powering that. And I feel like there isn't a large difference between using the Exynos chip on my Z Flip 7 versus using the Qualcomm chip made for Galaxy on my Z Fold 7. During my use, I haven't had any stuttering or any type of apps that are laggy or anything like that. If I did experience it, it's probably more so on the app than it is the actual performance of the phone. But the Exynos chip isn't just about how fast an app will open. It's not about how much stutter there is or isn't. It's also to include the battery performance. And so again, I've only used Qualcomm chips, and I know the battery performance and standards for the other phones, but with the Exynos performance in terms of batteries, I can honestly say that it does a pretty good job. The Z Flip 7 is rocking a 4,300 milliamp hour battery, and honestly, I'm almost skeptical whenever I'm looking at a phone and I think, ooh, that's less than 5,000 milliamp hours. I'm not going to get through a day with that. I am fortunately incorrect about that mindset. So I can take my phone off the charger at around 6 a.m. in the morning. I get up out of bed, I go take a shower, I get ready for work, blah, 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 and I can get through a full work regimen and then some. And this phone is going to last me a whole day. Keep in mind that includes texting, that includes conference calls, that includes a little bit of media consumption, maybe a few excellent throws in Pokemon Go. But overall, the battery is really impressive. So my battery anxiety about having the Exynos chip in the Z Flip 7, it was actually really relieved because I didn't ever really struggle with battery life. And again, I guess I had that mindset because a lot of people were saying, oh, it's an Exynos chip, blah, 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 blah. Don't believe everything you hear on the internet, kids. And so obviously your mileage may vary from mine because we use our phones differently, but I will have to say that there were days, as like today where I'm working in a hotel, I used this particular phone as my hotspot. I took the phone off the charger at 6:30 a.m. and then I did my full work regimen using my hotspot from this, and then at the end of my workday around 5 to 5:30, I found out that the battery on the Z Flip 7 was actually still around 49%, and that was just using hotspot. And so yeah, 49% isn't great, but I will have to say that I'm quite impressed because I know hotspots can drain the phone's battery like there's no tomorrow. And the fact that the Exynos chip with the 4300 milliamp hour battery doing nothing but being a hotspot for me got me through my 8-hour work shift, I was actually really happy with the performance there. Now, in terms of performance with this battery, I will have to say that there's one thing that just absolutely punches me in the toe, and that's going to be the charging speeds. For the last few years now, Samsung has absolutely just kind of stuffed it with their folding phones and limiting their charging capacity to, I think, 25 watts, which is just bonkers to me because there are phones overseas that are charging phones from 0 to 100% in like 40 minutes now. And the charging time for this Z Flip 7 is actually about an hour and 31 minutes. I am getting about 5 to 6 hours of screen on time, but honestly, I don't gauge my battery experiences by screen on time because again, we all use our phone differently. For me, the way I gauge the battery performance is, will it last me from the time I take it off the charger in the morning to the time that I'm about to go back to sleep? Naps aren't included. So when it is time for me to charge, I do have to kind of stay stationary. I have to kind of hover around my phone, wait for it to charge before I'm able to go again. I would like to see in future iterations for Samsung to at least add a 50-watt charger for both their Z Flip series as well as the Z Fold series. So now let's talk about the camera. The camera is actually really good. It's not great by any means. If you're looking to get a phone that has outstanding camera quality, I recommend going with the S series phones like the S25 Ultra, the S25 Plus, maybe even the S23 or S24 Ultra, because those phones are still valid in 2025. But the thing about this Z Flip 7 that kind of gives it a little bit of a niche camera setup is the fact that your typical camera is going to look like this. But whenever it's time to take selfies, sure, you could use the inner display camera, but you could also take selfies like this. And again, when the selfie camera is on with this outer display, it just looks freaky and cool at the same time. It just feels like you're using one of the Power Rangers communicators and then you're talking to Zordon. I will have to say that the cameras on this phone are not bad. They are good for the kind of everyday point and shoot type of photographer. But if you're looking to get this Z Flip 7 because you're thinking to yourself, it's going to be cool, it's going to have a great camera, I'd hate to disappoint you because this camera does not do well at night. It doesn't do well with zooming, and it doesn't compare to other flagship phones in the market of 2025. When I was reviewing this phone, I was coming from the S25 Ultra, and honestly, from the S25 Ultra to the Z Flip 7, I was severely disappointed because the S25 Ultra's camera quality is like the keys to the kingdom, but then you flip over to the Z Flip 7, it's kind of just like, oh, okay, it's not bad, but it's definitely not good either. But if you are not doing any type of real photography and you're just kind of like that point and shoot type person and just kind of like, oh, there's a cat sitting in the spotlight over there, this will do fine. It's just, you know, kind of just manage your expectations because like I said, Samsung did not put the best cameras inside of this phone. Because while the 50 megapixel main sensor and the 12 megapixel ultra wide sensor, as well as the 10 megapixel selfie camera, they're all really good, but it's not the best. But keep in mind that you're expected to pay that price of it being the best. Because in the United States, there's literally one other company that's in competition with the Z Flip 7. And so honestly, Samsung doesn't really have a large competition base out there because a lot of people don't really buy the Motorola Razr. So if you've used any other type of Samsung phone in like the last 10 years or so, you're going to know how to use the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7 because it's running off of Samsung's One UI 8. And that's the operating system that's right out of the box. We all probably have some type of understanding by now that Samsung's customization is rich and thorough. But in order to have that thorough and kind of rich customization features on the Z Flip 7, you do have to have good lock. And so if you're not familiar with the GoodLock app suite, it's basically a suite of Samsung applications that allow you to do some crazy customization on your phone. And GoodLock is not limited to the Z Flip or Z Fold 7. It's actually going to be available on most of Samsung's flagship devices. It's not going to be on Google and or iOS though. And so GoodLock is basically a required app for you to have on your Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7. If you want to do anything in terms of using widgets or customizing how your outer screen looks, you're going to have GoodLock, which could encapsulate anywhere from 3 to 8 or 9 additional apps on your phone. And apps equates to storage usage. So make sure that if you're planning on getting this phone, you get a storage capacity where you know you're not going to run out of space. Good thing the base storage capacity on the Z Flip 7 is 256 gigabytes. Personally, that's not enough for me, but for some other people, that is ample. Now, one of the coolest things about this phone is the fact that you get to use those widgets and those things from GoodLock on your outer screen. It's not really practical to watch YouTube on this 4-inch display, but you can do it. And it's not really practical to text a full kind of text stream on this outer display, but I did. What is practical and very helpful is going to be when you take the phone out of your pocket and you don't even have to open up your phone to launch Google Maps to navigate you to the nearest coffee shop. You literally can have Google Maps kind of navigating you around your town or city with the outer display, and then you would never have to open up your phone. Again, you kind of just keep it closed, and there you go. Now, unfortunately, the apps and widgets that you could use on the outer display is actually really limited. Even when you have all of the customization efforts of GoodLock, there's only a handful of widgets and apps that can actually be, in my personal opinion, useful. The only apps that I would actually use on the outer screen is going to be Google Messages, Google Maps, YouTube. I couldn't catch Pokemon with Pokemon Go on the outer display. I couldn't play Brawl Stars or take notes on this or that or whatever. And so even though you have the ability to use the outer screen as kind of a shortcut ability, it's not really shortcutting anything because, like I said, it's really limited. And depending on the situation, you're gonna open up your phone like this anyways. So now let's talk about price and accessories and things like that. So the price for the Z Flip 7, at least for the base storage capacity, is going to be $1,100 USD. And that's flagship phone pricing. I mean, for maybe $100 more, $150 more, you can get a true flagship phone with the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. With the top of the line specs, top of the line camera, top of the line processor, and the list kind of goes on and on and on. Whenever you are purchasing your Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7, I personally chose the coral red color because it looks very salmon color. And for those of you who don't know, I live in Seattle and we're all about salmon. Oh gosh, I think I'm making myself hungry. So in terms of cases and accessories for the Z Flip 7, I would have to say that I was widely impressed because there are so many companies out there on Amazon, Temu, wherever you're going to be buying your cases. There's a lot of options out there. I thought that when I purchased this phone, it was going to be difficult to find a case that was slim or maybe durable or maybe bulky and tanky. There, again, is so many options. And so I'm personally a big fan of the more sleeker cases. So my case preferences are going to gravitate to the more slim type cases. And a lot of the cases for the Z Flip 7 are going to be MagSafe ready, meaning you could wirelessly charge, or you can have MagSafe wallets or MagSafe phone stands, whatever floats your boat. But that MagSafe feature, without actually having a MagSafe wire or coil in the actual phone, it does a really good job. Okay, so we've spoken about the design, we've spoken about the performance, we've spoken about some of the internals, the battery, we've spoken about the cameras, we've spoken about the prices. Now let's talk about if this phone is actually right for you. If you skip to the very end of this video just to see this part, well, you kind of just messed up my metrics, but let's go ahead and get to the punchline and say that this phone is just a novelty to me. I do like the fact that it has an outer screen. I do like the fact that it's slim. I love the design. It's lightweight. It's just a really nice phone. But for me, specifically with my particular preference in phones is I don't see what the whole novelty is of having to open up your phone every time or close your phone every time, because you cannot and you should not be opening up your phone and then placing this in your purse or your pocket, because this inner screen is soft. it will scratch up. But I feel like this kind of clam closing feature is just kind of like a stab at nostalgia. You remember those times back in the 90s and early millennia, you would pick up the phone and you were like, oh, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden you close it because you want to hang up on that person. I guess you get to do that now in 2025. And same thing for picking up the phone. You could literally open up and start talking. It feels cool. It's just not part of my practical personal workflow. Because every time I want to text, every time I want to play a game, every time I want to do research, anytime I want to do any type of media consumption, I have to open up the phone like this to get the full experience. Because like I said, the outer screen does have some widgets. It does have some apps that you can use. It's just not practical. And I could probably count on one hand where there was an actual practical situation where I would use only and exclusively the outer screen. Other than that, I think it's a really good phone. It's just not what I really want in a phone. I personally would much rather have a traditional slab phone where I just kind of put it in my pocket and I don't have to unfold it. The Z Fold 7 is also a folding phone, but this folding phone actually gives me benefits. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this review. Again, I'm not really trying to bash the Z Flip 7. I think it's a wonderful device. I think it is the step in the right direction. I think maybe if Samsung allowed Goodlock to have additional outer screen widgets or additional kind of apps to be used on the outer screen so I don't have to open up the phone to do my regular task, I would love it more. But as of September of 2025, the outer screen is really limiting, and that just forces me to open up the phone. And then opening up the phone like this just to text or to check YouTube or check my YouTube Studio metrics, it's just a few seconds out of my day that kind of frustrates me because I have to open it. And then I do what I want, and then I have to close it. Again, few seconds out of my day. It's like literally pennies on the dollar, but it just kind of frustrates me after time. I would much rather have a phone where I could just jump right into it so that way I can do what I have to get done and then put my phone back in my pocket or throw it across the room. Now, not all folding phones are made equally because if you don't know, Samsung actually makes two folding phones, the Z Flip 7, which we just discussed, and they also make the Z Fold 7, which we're gonna talk about in the next video. If you like this video, make sure to hit that like button down below. And if you aren't already subscribed, also hit that button too. By literally doing those two small things for me, you'll literally make my day. I'll see you in the next one.